Hello and welcome to ClapperCast. I'm your host as always, Carson Timar, and today in my second birthday special of the month, that's right, I was greedy. I never take episodes, but this month I decided both of them would be for my birthday. Today we are talking about Over the Garden Wall. Joined by Nicolò Grasso and Chris Santon in his podcast debut, we discuss the series nearly a decade after it released on Cartoon Network, following the adventures of Wirt and Greg, two half-brothers as they traverse the mysterious place called the Unknown. After they get lost in the woods on their way home, the two boys run into a wide collection of characters, both silly and haunting, as they try to find some way to get back home from these mysterious and dark woods. Notable for both its comedy and its darker themes, we discuss not only why the show is still in the hearts of minds and so many today, even after it's been released for almost a decade, but also discuss more personally why we enjoy the show so much and what our favorite moments of it are. Thank you so much for listening to the ClapperCast. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for supporting everything we do. And thank you so much for sitting through and enjoying our review of Over the Garden Wall.
If I told you there was a story
Where are we?
from a forgotten place,
See anybody?
I see you.
filled with shadows
Something weird is going on.
and the unknown,
Yeah.
where solving the puzzle only leads to dangers and greater discoveries. Would you be willing to take a peek? Over the Garden Wall.
And then I guess I can start us off today. It is my birthday episode. But to be honest, Nick, we're here because of you, because you rewatched the show, which as longtime listeners will know is one of my favorites. Back in like an old Halloween special, we talked about it, but it was one of those where we talked about, I think, like 5 films in 1 hour. Wasn't the same thing as we're gonna do today. So just be very brief, because I'm actually more curious and finally hearing others talk about the show. I think this is wonderful. I think it is absolutely a fall staple of my viewing schedule. A very dark, very twisted, but very rewarding and fun and imaginative Americana tale of two boys getting lost in the unknown. It is incredibly weird, but then it slowly unravels itself in a way that I think is very, very rewarding and very bold at times. I think this is a show that really puts a lot of faith in its audience together. Even just episode by episode, you'll be jumped into a completely new situation, completely new dynamic, and you kind of have to like pick up the pieces and figure out what's going on and keep rolling with it. But I think overall, every single point, the beautiful animation, it helps. But I think this is a very atmospheric, very engaging, and at the end of the day, a very rewarding and worthwhile show that I love, and I will be watching every October from now for the foreseeable future. Nick, what are your thoughts quickly on Over the Garden Wall?
It's brilliant, just brilliant. I remember it was it was a nice coincidence because I remember like you talking about it a couple of years ago, or like maybe late 2020 when I first met you, and then others in that same period, like 1 or 2 other friends, watched it and they loved it, but they weren't able to sell me on it. It was just one of those things like, oh, it's amazing, and then always see the same same screenshots of the show. It was never anything actually particularly interesting visually. So I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out sooner or later. And then just randomly, I watched it last year, like at the end of 2023, and I fell in love with it. I think this is amazing in terms of pacing, in terms of creativity, and also in terms of just capturing the past in a more general sense. I think there is so much in Over the Garden Wall that's familiar, that's comforting. I think that's part of the, like you said, Carson, it's your go-to watch during the fall, and for many others as well, because it's just so cozy. The atmosphere and the characters, the songs. There's so many songs. There's almost like one song per episode. It's amazing. It just put me in a very just in great spirit, just made me feel good by the end of it. And even rewatching it now, there are so many like little details in the script. Absolutely love the performances in here. I think especially Wirt. It's it's Elijah Wood in this. It's and just perfect casting, but even all the other actors. Anyway, it's great. And I'm so happy that we're gonna get to talk about it today.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
So I've actually watched it probably 3 or 4 times. I try to watch it at least once a year around like Halloween, fall time ish. Um, and I think it was recommended to me. I'm not really sure. I stumbled across it on HBO Max like maybe 2 years ago. Um, and it is just absurd, and I love every second of that. I wish that there was more like that out there, but which I know that there is, but like there's nothing that you can just throw on and it's like 90 minutes and it just goes insane for no reason and then is awesome the whole time. Uh, and like he said, the music in it is it's it sticks in your brain in a way that you wouldn't expect, and then you just like it'll be the middle of February and I'm like mashed potatoes and molasses maybe, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just it's fantastic.
I think the Blasting Company, I mean, we really cannot overstate how good of a job they do here. I like this morning, well, I mean, they're on my playlist to be clear. I listen to these songs just regardless. My first ever vinyl I bought was the vinyl of Over the Garden Wall.
Oh,
But I was
nice.
listening to it this morning and just like it's just, I mean, they're iconic songs. Both the ones with like lyrics and words, I think they're bops. Langtry's Lament, I believe it is, also especially is like fantastic, so fun. But then all the sound, like even the background music, it's so good. The Boston Company, again, I cannot really recommend enough people go check out their other works also. But I think this might be like one of my favorite. Even talking, it's funny, for my birthday actually we did this in Babylon. I think too, like the best soundtracks I've ever heard. Like I really love this entire like album. It's kind of like the Barbie album where like I listen to it as an album, unrelated to the project, and that's a rock fact.
Yes, he has it.
How to work it in somehow. How to work it in.
Oh, that's amazing.
Nick, I'm curious about, you said it felt good because the story is, I mean, we can kind of get into spoilers. I mean, the show's been out for a while. Also, it is removed from HBO Max. I'll just say to anyone who's at home watching, very tragic there. I had to buy this thing finally, which I'm fine with, but like, wish it wasn't.
So
So,
in the US it's on Hulu.
well, no one
I
has
will say
Hulu.
that.
I don't have
Yeah,
Hulu, at least.
yeah.
Not here in Italy.
When Disney Plus takes it over, then we will talk. But for now, I sadly don't have Hulu. I do find it funny that you said you felt really good about it, Nick, because the story is two kids like die, right, and then go to purgatory, and also like,
It's comfy, you know.
can I just say, like, perfect. And I did not believe this originally. I was like skeptical to this idea. A perfect like adaptation of Dante's Inferno, if you look at it, which is wild. They like the layers to this film, and like, okay, not to go full conspiracy theory. I promise I'm not going to be this person this episode, but like when I was in high school, I did kind of lose my mind when it came to watching the show, and I like watched it like over and over again, the commentary track, like everything about it. I know, Nick, you watched that with the creators today. um and I did create like a 84 page, I think it was, like breakdown of the show, trying to figure out what it meant.
Wow.
So I'm very like Over the Garden Wall pilled. This is my January 6th for like sure. So like, just the layers here though. But I think like what is beautiful about it is that it feels like it's a rewarding enough script and project to engage with it in that way. I like think the costumes are genius because you get introduced and like both these people are wearing very weird outfits, and you just kind of go along with it, like, oh, like it's kind of quirky, you don't give it too much thought, but then as you get to that penultimate episode and it explains it, it feels like everything in this can be explained and it all builds together. Even the title Over the Garden Wall, and then you get to the penultimate episode, which kind of is like the key to everything, and you see that it's the cemetery and they're going over to death, like it all adds up. I think that's what keeps drawing me to it, is it's not like just that it has something of like emotional reward, like a Steven Universe, for example. There really is nothing else like this where I feel like you truly can just like maybe like a David Lynch feature, genuinely, where it's like you can keep engaging with it, keep tearing apart and like breaking apart and chewing on it, and you find actual answers. I think that reward is why I personally keep coming back to it beyond just like the fun autumn vibes. Um, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about it, but I just find this to be so rewarding when it comes to like a mystery box. And in a time where so many shows and movies are kind of trying to be that mystery box, I find very few are as like rewarding to actually engage with as this one.
I kind of love that it doesn't feel like it needs to answer any questions. It's just kind of like, no, this is it, and it's okay. Just follow along, and you'll get something at the end. But there's a talking bird, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna say something controversial here. Brace yourself, Carson and Chris. uh, I wish they didn't show us the flashback. Like, I wish they didn't have that episode
I
because
agree.
it felt a bit too clean. I was like, oh, I was like, it's so great. Like, you don't get, like, you're just thrust into it. You compared it to Dante's Inferno. That's, I didn't even think about it, but that's literally the opening. He's just walking towards like this dark woods. That's it. That's how it starts, and that's how this starts. I was like, okay, to go back and kind of give it like an explanation for the clothing. Oh, it's Halloween. Oh, it's pretending to be an elephant. Okay, and all the other things. Like, it's cute, and I like it. I think it's a very fun episode, especially like the way you were introduced to like the love interest of Wirt, and you know, the fact that little Greg stole the rock from the old lady. Like, those are very nice, but I wish there was more mystery to it. And up until like episode 8, I thought, oh, we're not like, this is it. Like, we're gonna just live in this world. There's not going to be anything set in modern times. And I kind of respect the fact that the most weird episode for me is the one that's the most normal in terms of our daily existence. It's just, oh wait, this is the real world. Oh, this is alien now. There's no like talking frogs or anything like that. Um, but no, I do really like the whole vibe. It's very folkloristic, which I also
Yep.
appreciate. And thankfully, like, none of these little vignettes are ever explained in one way or another, except for maybe like the haunted castle that's actually just two giant mansions merged together with two super rich wine, whatever they were, beer sellers. So no, I really love that, but I wish there was more to it. There was more mystery, but also I cannot deny, like, it's meant to be primarily a kids show, so can't get
Yeah.
too avant-garde with it. It's already a lot. I really respect the Cartoon Network. Like, I hadn't seen something from Cartoon Network since like 2010, 2011. Like, it's been
Yep.
it was like the, I don't remember the name in English. It's like the island where all the people are like doing like a reality
Total
show.
drama.
Total Drama Island?
That's the one. Yes, that's the
Hell
last
yeah.
cartoon I ever saw. I saw like the first 2 or 3 seasons, and then I dropped off when I started high school or something. So yeah, it took me back. It was nostalgic. Every episode ends with the little Cartoon Network jingle. Oh, I feel like a kid again.
I will say
Are we?
specifically before
Oh,
Chris jumps in, just super quickly, you mentioned the
sorry.
folklore aspect. I really think it's notable to mention how this felt like, or show. I'm going to keep saying film. I guarantee you, it's the same when I write about shows. Um, it's very American though. A lot of folklore, a lot of like fairy tales, they come from like a European setting or just has like a European vibe. This is distinctly American. I really like was thinking I can't think of too many projects like this that feel so distinctly like baked into like the soul of Americana. Just an another interesting kind of bit to the soul that I think helps with the iconography and help makes the show stand out more and have like this identity that really can't be matched anywhere else. Um, just a very quick note. Chris, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was. So we were talking about how the first episode and they're walking into the dark of the woods and Dante's Inferno and stuff. What about that pilot episode where they build a car out of fruit? Do you know what I'm talking
Yes,
about? That
Tom of
weird
the
episode that
Unknown.
you can't find anywhere. I love that episode.
Yeah,
I
just
just I,
the
I just popped into my mind.
John
yeah,
Chops. Hell yeah.
yeah. I don't remember. I think they talk about it in the commentary, like, very tangentially, but I think that was made just to sell the show, right?
Okay.
Which is interesting. I don't know why they didn't keep it as the pilot itself, but I think the fact that like already had Beatrice as well voiced. I don't remember who voiced her in that,
Yeah.
but it's not Melanie Linsky, it's someone else, which was odd. But Yeah, no, it's a cute episode. I was almost like when I found out about it, I
Yeah.
thought it was just like a bonus episode. I was like, oh, there's more. It's like, no, that's it. Don't get too excited. Just 11 episodes.
If you want more, you got to read the comics, which I think are
There's comics.
canonical. Oh yeah. Oh, and there's like lore stuff in it. It's oh yeah, no, it goes
Oh,
deep. Yeah, the short
it's
is very fun.
kind
I
of
think
hard to
it's
find.
available. It is. You can find those. I think you can find Tomb of the Unknown, the like pilot episode, online if you know where to look. I think Tomb of the Unknown is on YouTube,
I
right?
think it did some like Cartoon
That's where I
Network's
saw it.
YouTube
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I would recommend it. It's very cute. They make like a watermelon car. I love the designs of all the fruit people in that. I think the designs overall, like the
Yeah.
iconography for the show, are really, really strong. The
Hmm.
Highwayman, I think, is such a fun character. Just this random little like bit of
Oh,
animation in an episode, but it's
Yeah.
great. And there's a whole comic also about him,
that's my
which are fun.
favorite. It's like if you had to
Hmm.
say like Nick, your favorite 5-10 seconds of the show, I'm like
Yeah.
just the Highwayman animated at 24 frames a second instead of 12. Just I think because it's like episode 3 or 4, maybe 3 actually. I was like, that's the moment where I just loved it. I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this whole like experience. And the moment the Highwayman song popped, I was like, this is a 5. This is an easy 5, instant favorite. Um, yeah, it's so interesting because every character is so unique and they have their distinct looks and feels, but it all blends together so seamlessly. It could have been so easy to just be a
Hmm.
cacophony of like just weird designs, weird characters, but it all blends together so well. It's astonishing, honestly.
And it's interesting because it both starts and ends the show with a montage of all the characters and where they are at the beginning of the series
Mm.
versus where they are at the end. And it is wild at the end when you watch it. It does feel like rewarding. Like even like the people of Pottsfield, you have Langtree and her husband, you have all these people who like it does feel by the end like, oh, that was a really rewarding journey. Like every chapter
Hmm.
of this story, I think, is unique. I think it is memorable. It has its own very like sometimes distinct identity. We can get into the dream episode in a minute. I don't love that episode, but like it is undeniably very creative and very visually interesting. It is like I think that's one thing where it's like yes, it is like 90 minutes, so like you can easily get through it, but also like on the way there's so much to keep you engaged that it never really feels like there's a dull moment. The one
Mhm.
issue I have with pacing is once you get to Langtree, I think the show does have like I get what they're doing where they just need to beat down Wirt. They just need to make this kid's life like hell and just make him have no hope in life. I do think the pacing at that period, like episodes like I think it's like 6 and 7, let's say, can be a little bit weird when you're just watching this thing straight through like I was. I should watch this. I never have watched this where it's like because originally it debuted 2 episodes a day for 5 days.
Okay.
I've never watched it like that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure I guess it'd probably work better in that sense. Um,
Yeah.
but watching it all the way through, that's the one issue I have with pacing. But other than that, I think like every chapter, I appreciate how unique it is and how interesting. And just again, the artwork in general. I mean, yes, the trees are gorgeous and the skies and the geese flying. There's a turkey in episode 2 that just like
Uh,
every time it just plops on the table, it's like and the sound that goes with that. I don't know. That really does something to my brain chemistry. I somewhere have the art book for this show, and it's like it's just stunning. It is truly just gorgeous. But I think that's definitely like one of my favorite parts of it is the iconography and the usage of animation.
Yep.
yeah. I guess it's only in same places. That's- that was the beauty of. I actually did watch it. I don't remember like specifically how it was. It was like 2 or 3 episodes a day when I first went through it the first time around. Then the second time it was just like a 2 hour movie, basically. Um, and you kind of definitely feel the pacing's a bit off towards the end, but also it wasn't meant to be seen that way. So it's more of a me you us problem than just a general problem of the show. Um, Even then, I cannot imagine because you can tell like Nate Cash and the other people that worked on it are insanely creative and they probably had tons of ideas. Um, and you can tell like if they had the opportunity to have the episodes be longer or to have more than 10 episodes, this would have been like huge, like a proper epic. I know
Yeah.
like really listening to the commentary, especially the episode 6, I think should be, yeah, episode 6 when they're on the boat with the frogs and then they go to Adelaide. It was originally 2 episodes. but then they just kind of like had to
Mhm.
smash them in together. And watching it, you feel it, but also doesn't really bother you. I think that's another like it's not a perfect show per se in sense of like, oh, you can definitely find some criticism. I think like Adelaide, just like 2 minutes the entire, it's like, yeah, we're going to Adelaide, it's the Adelaide parade and everything, and then it's just like, oh, done, that's it. Oh shit, okay. It was quick. I think it was like a setup for like episode 7 just about her. So it has little bits like that, but it doesn't really matter. It's something I can recognize, but it doesn't really bother me, which is a testament to just how likable the core trio is. I think if they didn't
Yeah.
work well together in any way, especially Greg, like Wirt is always like, oh, I'm complaining about stuff. Oh, I don't do anything. But then Greg could have been just the most annoying character in existence. And instead, he's the cutest little child. He has to be protected at all costs. It's just want to give him a hug. This little frog keeps changing names.
And a teapot on his head.
Yes.
Because he's an elephant.
That's always my favorite. If you go to like Comic Con or anything, even like now, there's be at least one person dressed as Wirt and Greg, which is like excellent. Just
Nice.
get that teapot, put it right on your head. Shout out Colin Dean, great child performance, great
Yeah.
character. I think that episode with Langtree, or not Langtree, with Adelaide is like kind of a perfect showcase of the highs of this show, because it ends on this incredibly like serious, dark, emotional note where you like, I don't know, I get like really like, ooh, that's heavy. With this betrayal
Mm.
and with this like reveal of what her intentions were, but then you also get like the context of that and you can kind of feel empathy for her. Like it's a very layered thing. But before that, it's this really like stupid fun episode of them running around the boat and like this dumb fun, and oh, the frog is signing a contract to sing, and you get like some great songs in there. Like I think that episode is everything, where the show continually like jumps back and forth from being this dumb kind of ridiculous fun to being these very serious moments. And it's weird how it never feels, to me at least, like that bouncing of identity hurts either side of it. The jokes are never not funny because the darkness of the world around them, but the darkness is never hurt because these are kids having fun and singing all the Adelaide Parade songs. Like it's this weird balance that
Right.
I think like really is flawless. I think comes down to both, as you mentioned, the performances, which all three of these, I mean, even beyond the main three,
Yeah.
this cast is so stacked and so good. Christopher Lloyd is like fantastic here, but it's also the writing, which I think is so precise and it's so naturally flowing and gives these characters so much personality that you kind of have to be enjoying the time with them. I think it's really impressive. Like genuinely, I think like a lot of people get lost on the mystery of this. A lot of people get engaged with like, what does it all mean, the darkness of it, and that's all good and fine. I love that stuff, but I think like it's underrated almost in comedy and like in that balance. I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but I think it's like one of the most impressive parts of the show.
It's sharp, it's witty, in a way that's never
Mhm.
overbearing. I think that's kind of the magic of it, even listening to you talk about it. They, for something that moves quickly, it's a very fast paced show. Almost everything that happens is downtime. Like it's the
Yeah.
equivalent of, I don't know, like you're watching Lord of the Rings and it's like, oh, the scene where the hobbits are camping and they want to have second breakfast is amazing. It's like, that's almost the entirety of this show. It's like, oh, we're on a journey to somewhere, trying to do something, but we're always just like chilling. Oh, we're in a castle, just kind of like exploring it with this weird man. Why? Doesn't matter, shut up. Just chilling. Oh, we're going to a tavern, trying to get, you know, directions, and we're just gonna chill here. Like that's how almost every episode goes, which is just delightful. I think that's the beauty of it, because it never feels like it's rushing towards something. It works in its
Yep.
favor. Instead, if it were more like narrative driven, like we have to do this because then we do that and blah blah blah. Instead, it's just like, oh, Adelaide, yeah, sure, yeah. Oh, we have to go right, or we end up going left. Oh, just taking a massive detour. It's fine. It's it's clever. It's very clever.
One of my favorite parts is when they make a detour, and it's just the second episode where they go to the pumpkin village, which the name is escaping me, of the pumpkin village at the moment.
Pottsfield.
But Pottsfield, thank you. And they step on some pumpkins, they walk into a barn, and then all of a sudden they have to do manual labor, and that's just the episode. And it's that for me is that is what Over the Garden Wall is that episode. That
Hmm.
the the characters, the design of who they're talking to, and then they take off the pumpkin heads and they're just skeletons, and then they're just like, oh, okay, and then they just move on. That's what that show is to me, is just that episode.
And they managed to get some good commentary on here, not only on like life and death and the afterlife and love, but also just
Hmm.
small little things here and there about capitalism and and the workforce. I think one of the funniest bits for me is, well, that entire episode is just great, like many episodes in here. But the one where they're in the tavern, and there's the whole song is like, oh, you love a girl, you're gonna get married. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, there's work for all when people get married. No, when little boys. There's work for all when little boys get married, which is amazing. It's just like, oh yeah, get married so you can pay us. So like we need to get paid, the baker and everything. It's I don't know. It's just little things like that where if I were a kid, I'd just get sucked into the beauty of it all and the magic. It's like, oh, this is like colorful and vibrant and full of life. But watching it now, I'm like, this is just on point, like on point for something that's 10 minutes long. Every episode, they managed to squeeze in so much. It's ooh, I'd go insane. I'd go insane. I'm like, how can I fit all of this in such a little time? And you don't feel the fat. That's amazing. It's just lean.
I think it does say something that this is 10 episodes, right? We've been able to identify pretty much every episode. There's a few things we haven't talked about, but we've been able to talk about every single episode. We've been able to identify specific moments that we like from it. Each one, there isn't one that gets lost or it's like, oh, I think it's around the beginning or end.
Hmm.
It really is distinct. I mean, the episode in the tavern, the comedic timing in that is second to none. I love this small moment. There's so many small moments. If you ever watch Over the Garden Wall with me, I'm normal, so I can shut up. But if you just said don't shut up, I could just talk continuously throughout it. There's this moment where the bluebird flies in and she's in the middle of a conversation. They just whack her with a broom, and I don't know, that gets me every time. I think the
Yeah.
horse a joke at the end is super funny. The comedic timing there is just so good. Um, yeah, it's really good. I think the one thing we haven't really talked about is the beast himself, the dark lord of the
Oh
night.
yeah.
Um, Nick, what you had a reaction to that?
Yeah, it's that whole. I don't want to say it feels underdeveloped. That whole side of it, with the woodsman and his daughter is inside the light, and the beast is like, "Oh, okay, stay with me." You know, it's that's something compared to like the flashback episode. I'm kind of glad we never get lost into who he is, why he's doing all of this, outside of just kind of being evil. We don't even really get to see his design except for literal frames. It's like what, 5 frames at the final episode, which I haven't. I didn't do a freeze frame. I don't want to look at the design. I think the beauty is in the motion. It's just like, whoa, shit! Oh, what is that? Looks creepy. Yeah, I like it. I think it's good to have such an ominous presence throughout. It's kind of building up to something. I think the climax is effective. If I had to pick like one thing, I think this is my least favorite part of the show. If to be like, yeah, the beast is alright. Is alright. Even in watching it, there was no moment I was like, oh, damn, the beast. Oh, yeah, where is this all going to go? It's like, just kind of is like a means to an end. Like, you need something like that. And I can respect that they build up to it, but yeah, left me wanting a bit more, but also I'm glad it didn't give me more. I don't know, it's such a weird balance. I'm still conflicted about it. I'm curious what you think, Chris.
Um, Truthfully, it's one of the parts of the show that doesn't really stick out or resonate with me in many ways.
Mm.
Is that aspect of the beast at the end? I actually kind of really like that, though. In the beginning, they do a fake out of the beast. It's that wolf creature that attacks the house, and they're like, "Oh, the beast is here," and then he's just like, "No, that's not it." But it really, it that's just every time I think about this show, for some reason, like that has never been something that stuck with me. And this is a little blasphemous. I completely forgot Christopher Lloyd was in this until you said his name. Like those parts of that show, just they never stuck with me in that way. And it really is like it's just like the jokes and how it doesn't talk down to its very obviously younger audience, and it's good enough for adults or middle aged or whoever to watch it and it'll resonate with them in certain ways. And one of my favorite jokes in this show, and it's so dumb and it's so small, is when they're at the school for animals and the father shows up with his big coat on, and then they go outside and he takes off his coat and he's like this tiny guy and he puts up a trumpet to make a tent. For
Yeah.
some reason, like that's like I said before with the pumpkin thing, that's what this show is for me. And I don't know why, but those darker themes, while they are interesting and they speak on like a really deep meaningful level, they never really had the impact that just the we don't have enough absurdity in film and television, in my opinion. So when something like this comes along, that's what sticks.
Well, especially like I don't know. I think like innocent absurdity to where like yes, there are meanings to the show. It's not like empty, but this is not like. And Nick, I'm not gonna trigger you. We don't need to get into it, but this is not Beau is Afraid, where it's trying to be absurd for absurdist takes, and then just also trying to be like this is the most genius thing ever. Chris, I think you also like. I don't know. I valid
I actually loved
everyone.
Bo's Afraid.
Yeah,
My
well,
man.
luckily this is not the Most Afraid episode. I'm sure everyone else loved it. I'm sure I'm alone here. Valid, everyone. But I think this is like perfect absurdity compared to that project and how that project uses absurdity. Um, Moving on from that quickly, I'll just say I like the Beast. I don't know. I like the design. I think it doesn't help the structure of how his, I don't know, I guess you could say narrative is, where he and the Woodsman, but the Beast even more than the Woodsman, really is like pushed to the side. He's
Mhm.
there for like a couple like ending of the episodes, but I think his animation, there's a great scene where Greg is walking away from work towards the end and the Beast is just like looming in the background, and it's like great.
Yeah,
Samuel Raimi is not like an actor, he's like an opera performer. He gives the voice to the Beast. I think he does a wonderful job.
So
um
deep.
I do think again, like I wouldn't say it's memorable past probably the final episode where he becomes more of a focus. I don't think of like, oh, that scene where he talks to the woodsman is really good. But I do think it is interesting. And it's also probably just because I've spent so much time trying to like uncover what the show's world, how it operates, and a lot of it revolves around the Beast is very like telling. But like I've like fully like just convinced myself I love the Beast. But I do like the performance, I do like the visual, I do like him as a looming figure. But I'm happy also though that he's not like the focus, right? Like
Mhm.
as you mentioned, he's in the background until the very end, then he provides the grand like climax battle, even I guess you could say there's a little bit of action there with him and the woodsman. um but he's never the focus, never takes away from the rest of the fun of the show that we're talking about. So I think even if you or even if you're not engaged by him in the same way that maybe I am, hopefully it's not so overbearing to where it would cause like any issues. Speaking of the ending, what did you guys think of how the show ends, like the final episode? But like, how did you feel like it was satisfying? I know Nick, you didn't like the penultimate episode, but like,
No, I still
what
liked
about?
it. I like the
Well,
penultimate
yes,
episode, but I wish they didn't give us answers. Just keep it all mystery. I'm that kind
sure.
of guy. No, but I would say on a purely emotional level, I think the stretch from the ending of episode 8 up until like the closing montage is so moving in terms of brotherhood, in terms of just, loyalty and family. It's so, ooh, it's like the Grinch made my heart grow 3 times as big by the end of it. It genuinely
hmm
moves me a bit, like moved me almost to tears the first time around. I was just like so in it. It's perfect. I'm shocked, like listening to them talk about it. They were like, "Oh, we almost didn't have enough time to fit in the closing montage." I was like, "That's crazy. That's just insane to me. Like how no, it's the only. I genuinely think it's the only good way that this could have ended, where it's satisfying, doesn't give you like all the answers. It doesn't rely on exposition. Just very visual, very visceral, and just
yeah.
very emotional. because again, it's about these two little kids. So focuses on that and doesn't get sidetracked too much in the end. So even the Woodsman ending, I think, is nice, and the way it connects. I like how some side characters kind of connect with one another in one way. There's little like things here and there in the dialogue. There's like, oh, okay, everything's connected. I think like Auntie Whisper says that she's related to Adelaide, like sister or something. So it all makes sense, but also it doesn't spend too much time, doesn't linger on. Here's everything. It's not like the Almodovar movie that we talked about. Just like box of tests in your face. Just now read. Here's what happens. No, I think it's great.
And small things like Beatrice's house is like a human, is the house the
Yeah.
woodsman's in. Like there's small things like that. Chris, what were your thoughts on the ending?
So like I think Nick covered it pretty well as like a whole. There's one thing that like is super specific for me, and I'm so glad they did it, is that they acknowledged that it wasn't a dream, that it wasn't fake, that they took the time to at least just put that little bit at the end with the frog. And because if they had gone that route and just been like, was it real? I probably would have lost my mind because I can't stand that storytelling device as a whole. Um, like yes, keep the mystery, but if you're gonna give us answers, do it right. Um, so yeah, that's probably my biggest thought on the ending, is that just thank God they didn't just throw it all away.
Is this the best Wizard of Oz reimagining that isn't directly related or trying to be the Wizard of Oz in a weird way?
Maybe. Yeah, I can see it. I can see the argument.
What about Tin Man on Sci-Fi? Was now that was a miniseries.
I haven't even heard of that.
It's really bad.
Going in my watch list. Tin Man from Sci-Fi.
Added to the watch list. Nick, I'm shocked after Lynch / Oz you would say that instead of like David Lynch's entire filmography is the best retelling of Wizard of the Oz.
Well, you know me. I'm not a shill. I'm a stan.
No, you would never, for top 100 films, pick David Lynch's entire filmography as your best
I
single
never
feature of all
would.
time. Never.
There's no proof of that.
I think I think any proof of that would be destroyed at this point. So I think you're safe. I agree about the frog at the end. I think the ending is really strong. The montage is awesome. And that frog, like that, I don't know. For my brain, that just clicks where it's like, oh, this is rewarding. I want to keep engaging with it. Definitely means the kids are still dead at the end is all I will say. But that's my take. But I do think the ending is very fun. And as like, you need some grand conclusion and climax for this story and for these efforts. I think the Beast works well in that role. I like the bit with the woodsman. It's sweet. He gets to go home to his daughter. I like it. I'm a big fan of the ending overall. And I think the final like a few episodes, I like the penultimate episode. I also love the song Tiny Star, which is featured in it, I'll say. But I think the overall like sense of dread that comes, and as you mentioned, Greg and Wirt's relationship and how Greg steps up, it's like heartbreaking and it's so good. I don't know, it gets me every time emotionally. I'm
Don't
like,
even
yes.
see the face. It's just like,
Yeah. Well, it's just, and then there's just a scene of him sitting there waiting for the sun to like fall into this cup, and he's just shivering in the cold, and you're like, oh god. And then he's like getting eaten by the tree, and then he's like, again, the comedy, it works so well. He's like, oh no, I was just eating leaves. I wasn't spitting them up. Don't worry. But then he like dies. It's crazy, y'all. But I think it's very well done and very rewarding. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any other bits of the show we really want to get into before we start to move on?
I could get lost in like
I
an
will say,
episode by episode breakdown. So no, go Chris.
Oh well,
go
yeah.
Chris.
I mean, I could be here for
It's
8
easy
hours.
to
Let's be
get.
clear. I have an 8-hour lecture like ready to go. But Chris, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say it's always really nice to see media for a younger audience take on death in a
Mhm.
way that doesn't seem pandering or like just just like I said earlier, just talking down to kids, because it's just such a real topic, and the fact that this show is just not afraid to be like, here it is, and here's a joke about it at the same time. I really love that, and I'm not overtly familiar with the creators' other works, but I'm sure that they do a really nice job in whatever else they've worked on.
There really aren't. Like, Patrick McHale has, like, done supporting, like, production roles, but he hasn't really created much else, which I think is, like, such a shame, especially because this, like,
Okay.
is still quite popular. Cartoon Network, not that I like follow the studio too deeply, but they I think are pretty known for like having projects that just kind of like small projects come up and then throwing them away. Continually I see them reference Over the Garden Wall. Continually, if they're talking about like their projects, they will include artwork from Over the Garden Wall, or like they'll include references to Over the Garden Wall. This is very culturally like, I again, people are still cosplaying as it, people are still talking about the show. It's lived on, and we're almost a decade off. This debuted
Yeah.
in what, 2016, so we're
24
or
2014, I think.
2014. Oh god, then we're literally a
Yeah, we
decade
are a decade off
from release,
because the
and people are, yeah,
the car episode's from 2013.
that's crazy. So over a decade from the pilot episode, and like people are still actively talking about this. Think about all the projects between now and then. Like there are some that are obviously still, but like there's so many projects that have been lost and no one cares about. The fact that this guy
There's
hasn't,
been like
I don't
7
know.
Ben 10s.
Right, right.
Hmm.
I almost believe, like, he must I would love to see Patrick McHale's Ben 10, not gonna lie. But I almost feel like it must be a choice, like, he doesn't, like, have that next project. I don't know, I have to believe that, because if you have a guy who creates this with such a limited amount of time, with such, limited amount of resources probably compared to most shows, due to the size of and scale of the actually release, and it's still so effective and well done. I don't know how he doesn't have more. Oh, he did co-write Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Probably why that film was
Yes.
so good, y'all. So I will say that was great. But I don't think he's created many other shows or stuff. But hopefully he keeps like moving forward, because I obviously think he's an incredible talent.
Yeah. I've never seen Adventure Time. I know that's like a big like favorite for people that grew up with that. That was literally like it started when I was dropping off like children's cartoons. So I never watched it. I don't have that type of attachment. But yeah, I'd love to see like a feature for
Yeah.
him. Like 2D animation, just go wild, go insane, just do
Yeah.
whatever you want. Because the balancing of tones here is impeccable. This show is scary. You
Yeah.
really said it, but
Yeah.
if it was like ages 6 to 9, this freaked me out. There's a couple of episodes like, damn, there's some spooky imagery. Even just the Pottsville episode. It's like that's I mean, like it's
Yeah.
cute and all, but the giant maple pumpkin that's actually alive. It's just like, yo, it's trippy. I bet some people have watched this high and loved
Oh,
it.
that sounds like a good experience.
you know.
I do think this film or the show would not be made how it is like today, which I think is kind of sad. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just I'm nihilistic, but like 10 years of like evolution and culture and standards, I don't think you would have a show. I think they would cut things like even small things like the big pumpkin being like, we're charging you for murder. I feel like now they would get a note that's like, don't say murder. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, obviously, cartoons and like there are still some incredibly worthy ones, and there are still some like bold ones and ones that have a real emotional effect. But it does feel like we're getting to this era where it's like, and I don't watch a lot of cartoons to be clear, so I could be talking completely up my ass. But my perception of it is that you won't be seeing many dark stories in the same way that Over the Garden Wall is dark, which I think is sad. I think it's like a show of a dying breed. But luckily, it is still, like I said, popular, available. I would obviously recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it, and if you haven't seen it for a while, maybe give it a rewatch. I really appreciate it. I think there isn't really much else out there like it, which is kind of sad because like I want to spend more time in this world. I love that it's 10 episodes. Don't get me wrong, it's perfect, but I would love to see like 100 episodes in this world of just like exploring and hanging out, having fun. I don't know. I really appreciate what they've built here, and I'm happy we were able to talk about it today. Nick, do you have any thoughts?
I'm very happy I've seen this twice now. It might probably become a go-to show because it's so like let's even call it a movie. Like it's a 2-hour movie, you can even less without the credits. Like just put it on and enjoy it to the fullest. Make a fan edit that's like 1 hour 50 or something, just trimming some things here and there. Um, it's so pleasant. It's just it's. I was not expecting it to be this funny, to be this moving, to be this just tight narratively. just so well conceived, thought out, colorful, inventive, so full of instantly memorable, genuinely iconic imagery. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'm so used, especially like coming from Italy and having grown up with countless adaptations of the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen and all those other fantasy writers and fairy tale writers from like 17th, 18th century. To see something like you said, Carson, in the beginning, just so American with like pilgrim imagery and colonial imagery and all those things, it's refreshing. It's refreshing in a way that's familiar and that also adds to just the cozy comfort vibe of it all. Where it's you're looking at it and it's something new, but it also reminds you of just times gone by, movies, The Crucible, and other such stories. It's so it's I think this is the best. If someone wanted to make something that feels familiar without being derivative, I think this is just the right sweet spot for that. It's like I've kind of seen that before, but not like this. Not like
You mean there
this.
are other ways to engage in nostalgia than including a 30-second cameo of an actor who died playing a superhero? That's crazy, y'all. I never would have suspected that. I thought that was the only way to do it. Um, with that said, I think it's time we move to our question of the week, which we're asking, and we've talked about a lot of the episodes in the show, but we're asking what is our favorite episode or chapter of the show? Chris, take it away. What is your favorite episode of Over the Garden Wall?
it's the second one. It's the one with the pumpkin people in Pottsville. I'm actually looking for the title of the episode as we're
Hard
speaking because
Times
it's
at the
just
Huskin Bee.
sure. um, yeah, no, that for me, that one just knocks every aspect of what that show is out of the park for me. Even though the most memorable song for me in the show is in the animal school episode, um, but it really is just like it, when I think of fall, I now intertwine it with that episode. So
Hmm.
Wall now fits into that for me, and it's because of that episode. So it's got to be that one.
Love it. Pottsfield also play off Potter's Field. A little a factoid there, which is where people bury bodies. Just I have a
Okay.
lot of a lot of random factoids in there. Nick, what's your favorite episode?
My favorite episode, episode 7, The Ringing of the Bell. Anti whispers. It's amazing. That's my vibe. That's my vibe. I know you thought maybe I would like the dream episode more because I'm a surrealist guy. I love my Lynch, and I do kind of like it. What I like about that episode specifically, like episode 8, is that it's the closest to 1930s animation. It's almost like straight out
Mhm.
of a Betty Boop cartoon. Like it's all moving like horizontally. There's no real depth to the image, and the way the little angel children are drawn, and the cloud, the north wind. It's delightful. But no, I love episode 7. I think it's the last kind of self-contained episode towards the end. It's like okay, little detour, super creepy, genuinely disturbing. Tim Curry as Anti Whispers, amazing. Just one of those like when I found out it was him, I was like, holy shit, is one of the greats. Um, there's a little song like ships sailing upon a winding river. It's sweet, sweet, sweet. The design of the girl when she goes like, oh, it's the ghost. Like as an adult, I was like horrified. I was like, this would scar me for life if I were a child. Um, it's great. It's great. I think that for me kind of captures everything about not so much the autumn fall vibe of the show, but more of the Halloween vibe of it. It's a bit dangerous, bit edgy, but also has some very good laughs. I love everything with Greg and the frog. The frog just like doing random things. It's amazing, hiding between the turtles and stuff. Oh no, that's my favorite episode.
To be fair, I thought the dream episode was because you mentioned like when you first watched it, your one note was that you liked the reference to the like 1930s animation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I was going off of. Also, kind of like not gonna lie, did this influence Cuphead? I don't know the timeline, but and I don't play
I
Cuphead, so assuming. But
I'm a big
hey,
Cuphead
similar.
fan, and I can see that. I
That's
can see
fair.
that being kind of like, oh, okay, we should do this. I think Cuphead came out like 2017, 2016,
Yeah,
2017. It took
something
them
like
a
that.
while to make, but I can see this like the success of Over the Garden Wall kind of pushing them to be like, we are on the right track. Just like,
Yeah, the Cuphead show's great.
I haven't
Yes,
seen
I
the
watched
show.
season 1 and it was really fun. I haven't seen the
Yeah,
rest, but
okay.
season
Yeah,
1 was super fun. There's been a lot of like that older like style of not just animation, but like the costumes, the designs. I really think Over the Garden Wall like doesn't get a lot of appreciation for like kind of starting that movement. I would make the claim kind of blindly that it did. But for my favorite episode, I'm gonna go School Town Follies, that third one with the school for animals. You have some great goofs in here
yes.
with the gorilla. You have the
Gorilla.
old cat game, which I think is hilarious. I think you get some really fun banter with Beatrice and Wirt here. Langtree's song is, I mean, y'all, I like karaoke this shit. Like, it's good. It's very good. And then you get a really fun, again, like the joke with the coat is really great. And then the ending, I think, is satisfying. It just kind of, it
Mhm.
all comes together to kind of give you every little thing I want out of Over the Garden Wall. So I adore it a lot. And Potatoes and Molasses and
That's
Bop,
just
which also the way they bring it back at the end in Latin is like so well done. It's so good. It's so good.
they knew it was going
Yeah.
to be like such a near worm. It was going to work doing
Yeah.
it again, and it's emotional. Like it starts playing, they're like, oh, Greg keeps trying to crack jokes. It's like, oh, it's like, don't be funny. Stop being funny. It's just like, no, it has to be funny. It's his raison d'etre. Ah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, with that, I think it's time we close the book on Over the Garden Wall. And let's get to our rapid review section of the episode where we review anything we've seen recently that we haven't talked about today very quickly. I'll go first because I have a few things. We're FY pre-recording this. We're still in January when we're recording this. So Lord knows I'm not seeing any of these new releases. But
What
I
about
did watch
Argyle?
Argyle's in February. It's, coming out soon. I don't
We'll
want to see
know who
it.
the real Agent Argyle is by now. People
I don't
know.
I don't want to see it. If anyone wants to know what it's like to be Paul Price's friend, he sent me a picture. He was like, "Lol, I'm listening to the audiobook," and I was like, "Oh, good for you. I would never do that." And then 2 days later, the hardcover copy of the book was at my doorstep because he bought it for me. So like, I have to read it now, and I'll probably see the movie. I'm not happy, but we'll get there. I saw Little Miss Sunshine, which I really liked this week.
Hey.
I saw Criterion put out like a collection of cat movies, and I was like, I want some dumb fun. So I watched the Disney cat movies, which is That Darn Cat and The Cat from Outer Space. Neither of which are very good, but
Live
I don't know.
action
They were
or
fun. Oh, live action for sure. Live action like
oh,
1950s and 60s.
Yeah.
Practical effects on the alien stuff. Oh, it's fantastic. It like really that hits my brain in the right way, even if they're not really good movies. I finally watched The Book of Henry, which like I was not ready for. I don't know if either of you saw it. I heard it was bad, but it's like not even like
Who's
you kind of have to go watch it. Colin Trevorrow.
that's it's
You
okay,
have
thank you. I was like,
to.
he made something.
Yeah, he lost
Mr.
this. It's
Did.
the film that lost him Star Wars. I just think if you haven't seen this, like it's not even your traditionally like, oh, it's so bad. It's like just odd. It's odd when there's like craft and everyone is trying, but it's so like flawed in ideas. I don't know. Go watch this if you have not already. It's really quite wild. But then finally, Nick, you've been yelling at me to watch Short Bus after our episode on how to talk to girls at parties. And what a perfect time. I just wrote a whole article about pornography that should be on Clapper at this point. But this is like amazing. This is like one of my favorite films of all time. It tells the story of all these different people living in New York City, going through various sexual encounters, very, very graphic sexual encounters, not like fictional at all, just like people having sex on screen. And, like even the director hops in there for a little bit, and he was like, it's for solidarity with the crew. And it gave kind of John Waters vibes almost in that aspect of like this is a family. But I truly like was blown away by how fun and how meaningful this is. There's so much here. It's not really even about sex, even though it's based around sex. It's about loneliness, about longing, about desire, about just trying to find pleasure and direction in the world when you're lost. And it's so emotional in some scenes, and just the acting is perfect. For John Cameron Mitchell, it's sad because like we did our episode on him, and we were like, oh my god, Hedwig and the Angry Inch is fantastic, and it really is. But I think this is easily his magnum opus. Like this is one like I could rave about. Maybe in a few years we'll be back here on ClapperCast talking about it. But for now, I'm very happy you yelled at me, Nick, because this is like stunning.
I knew it.
Um,
I knew it. Warms my heart. Like we were
right.
talking, we were recording the episode. I was like, you have to watch Short Bus. Like it's your movie. You have to watch it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Another one that starts off super funny and then by the end you're just crying. It's like, it's so good.
Especially with some of the themes on like suicide in there, like trigger
Jesus.
warning everyone, but like it gets dark, but it gets really emotional.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. I thought if it was like that good, people would be talking about it. I didn't realize people didn't talk about queer sex on screen. So my fault.
Just
Um,
creepy, just weird. It's not
yeah,
natural.
it's just strange. NC-17. Well, this one actually deserves NC-17. Though. I'll give you this one. I didn't mention this in the article as being wrong, but
The
you
first
know,
5 minutes is like, yeah,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
I'll give you it, but sure. Nick, what are your rapid reviews for this week?
I've been in Netflix hell for a bit. Pain Hustlers,
Love
horrible. Lift, horrible. The Kitchen, massive disappointment. Just like, ugh. Just I'm done with Netflix. You know, I've seen enough for a while. Um, to kind of clean the palette between all of these things, I watched Sexy Beast recently, the Jonathan Glazer movie. Instant favorite. It's one of the quickest 5 stars I've ever given to a movie. The only rating I still give out nowadays. It's just like, oh, the vibes, the acting in this. I think like Ray Winstone, Ben Kingsley, Ian McShane, just god tier level performances. But it's such a just a vibes movie. I wrote to our good editor in chief, Jack Lick Sharp, when he's gonna be like 45-year old. We're just gonna be together in Venice at the Venice Film Festival, and this is gonna be like Ray Winston just chomping on cigars and enjoying life. That's his future. Finally watched Millennium Mambo, the Hungarian film. Didn't love it. Lots of people love it. Just a bit too distant emotionally. I like me a good vibes movie. This was a bit too much only about the vibes, not enough about anything more than that. But still gorgeously made. And the only other noteworthy film, I finally watched Wonka in the cinema. English dub, so the original version, no Italian shitty dubbing for the songs. Finally, it was delightful. I listened to the episode that you all recorded. I was crying. I wish I was there to help my boy Timmy. Just made me feel super good. Gave me joy, gave me hope. I cried at the end, which I wasn't expecting. It was like, his mom is in the crowd, Carson. The mom is in the crowd. It's because he's sharing chocolate with people he loves. That's what matters most.
I'm just broken emotionally, maybe, because everyone is like, Wonka's fucking great. And I'm like, y'all, come on now. Come on. This is giving when like those 5 people who saw The Greatest Showman were like, it's the best film of all time.
Ugh.
It's giving that energy.
I think hot take. I like it as much as Paddington 2, which is a movie that I don't love. So it's just like,
What are we doing here? It's Wonka. It's bad. Literally the scene, not to get into it, we can watch our full episode. There's a scene of magic where they go into a dark room and there's just like a badly CGI giraffe there. Like
amazing. They sing while Timothy Chalamet is milking a giraffe and the girl just sings. I was like, this is cinema. This is poetry.
Look, as a cat stan, I won't say you're wrong, but I'm just not seeing the vision. But I can't judge because you know what? To be honest, when James Corden is out there eating that trash, I feel a type of way. So you know what? Valid.
Could have looked better. That's like my last thing. For the cinematographer and the type of movie it was, this should have looked like a banger film. Instead, it just looks fine. Better than Greatest Showman. Like you can actually see what people are doing. So Greatest Showman sucks. Anyway,
Yes,
I'm done.
and it wastes a good soundtrack, unlike Wonka that has a bad soundtrack in my opinion, but valid everyone.
Yeah, I can see that.
The Greatest Show, that's such a good song. Anyway, it's not to get into that. Chris, what are your What have you seen this week?
What did I watch? I actually haven't been able to watch too many movies. I found some time for shows and whatnot. I'm just about finished the Orville, uh, and I'm loving it. Big Star Trek guy. Saw Poor Things. Absolutely loved that. Uh, really, really blew me away. I didn't like it as much as you guys probably did. Um, because the first act or so kind of lost me. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, but really in that third act, it really picks up and kind of just saved everything in that movie for me.
Nice.
Um, I saw Mean Girls, and I gave it a pretty positive review. It'll be handed in soon. Hopefully, people will be able to see it. I'm changing my mind that as time goes on, I actually am finding myself liking it less and less the more that it passes through my brain. So I've chosen to stop thinking about it. But it does. I've never seen a movie that has 18 music videos in it and no movie until I saw Mean Girls, and that's not a good thing. um, what else did I watch? Anything else? Oh, I watched the Ted series. I don't know if that
How
means
is it?
anything. Uh,
Yeah,
so do you like the movies?
kinda. I saw them in the
I
cinema.
think that I think they're bad. Um, and the show genuinely made me laugh a few times. I think I might be warming a little bit to Seth MacFarlane because of the Orville, but his humor doesn't always hit for me.
Mm.
There's elements of it that are edgy for the sake of edgy in a way that just doesn't work with me in the slightest. But I'm not gonna lie, there was a couple gut laughs in those 9 episodes. Um,
Is it just
and
like
then
all like binged, like just all released straight on
yeah,
streaming, or
it's all on what it's on one of the streaming services
like
that doesn't
Paramount or
need to
I think
exist.
it's
something?
Peacock. I could be wrong.
It's Peacock. Yeah, it's on the one that
Oh,
why is it there?
oh.
It's really just like skits. Like the whole show is just skits. So like if something doesn't work, something else might in a minute or two.
Okay.
Um, and I watched Pokemon Concierge and absolutely fucking loved it.
What's Pokemon Concierge?
Oh, it's cute. It's like a
It's
stop motion, like resort.
Episodes.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Oh,
About like a resort with Pokemon. It's cute. It's really cute.
okay.
It's super quick. If you have an hour, you could probably just knock it out. But I really love the animation, and I found it just to be like really gorgeous. And then it didn't require anything besides just like, oh, this is cute. Um, which I as I said earlier with Over the Garden Wall, I don't think that there's enough just like weird stuff to just put on for a few hours.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, that's gonna do it for today. Chris, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Santon underscore 237, and you can find me on Letterboxd at Santon 237.
Nick.
Twitter and Instagram at NikkiClara97, and you can also find my short films and videos on YouTube and Vimeo at Enjoy the Movies. And yeah, all my writing on Clapper, Instagram, Instagrams, live and kicking now. Every day almost there's new posts that I'm making, so check it out. Clapper Ltd on Instagram.
And you can find me on Twitter at BP underscore movie reviews, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at just Carson Timar. That is at Carson Timar, not like at just Carson Timar, to be clear. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for indulging me this month for my birthday month. To be honest, I was only gonna do Babylon, and then Nick wanted this. So I was like, sure, you know what? This will be fun. And considering I also schedule the podcast, I'm going to keep winning. In 2 weeks, we'll be back to discuss Dream of the Fireflies, Studio Ghibli. We're jumping in head first. I don't think we've ever covered a Studio Ghibli film on the actual podcast, so I'm very excited for that. Me and Jack have our Terrence Malick double feature episode up on our Patreon if you want to subscribe for only a couple dollars a month. Next month, our Patreon will be back. Nick, we're talking about John Waters. I'm very excited. So a ton of fun stuff here on the podcast. Again, thank you so much for listening, supporting, watching, sharing, subscribing, liking, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.